Welcome, everybody, back to the Jesus Missions podcast. This is episode number 7, and we have some special guests on the podcast with us today. First of all, my co-host, Shobi, she's here with us. I feel like, Shobi, you've been on...
I've been on one episode before, so this is my second.
Let's,
Amazing.
let's go. Awesome. And for those as a reminder, Shobi's part of the Jesus Missions core team. She was being a producer on our film that we were shooting out in the Himalayas, and she does a ton on her back end, and she's incredible. So we're excited to have her on with us. And she has invited on a very special guest. Shobi's from Sri Lanka originally, and then she has invited on Ruini. I feel like that time it wasn't as good as earlier, but she's in Sri Lanka, and we're just going to talk to her, have an open conversation about faith, Christianity, all things, what it's like in Sri Lanka, and just have an open, honest dialogue and conversation. So welcome, Ru. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's just get started. I mean, we're cold starting here. I'm getting to know you for the first time. So share with me, just like what your day to day right now in Sri Lanka, what you do, and we'll kind of go from there.
Where to start? So I have a job and I teach. I'm an artist. I teach art. I have an art school, and I work about 4 days a week. But most of the time, I'm into ministry in the sense that at the moment I lead an organization called Enforcers of the Call Global, a way into transformation. It's very apostolic. We go to like hard places, and God just does amazing miracles.
Wow.
So I actually like going to places where nobody goes because I see the miracles of God. Yeah. So that's one organization. I also lead another organization called International Christian Chamber of Commerce, Sri Lanka. I'm the head of the Sri Lankan branch. And what I'm doing right now is I'm going across the country, raising up entrepreneurs and business people. We're trying to build, kind of really invest in business people, Christian businessmen, Christian business women, to do ethical business, and also really build the nation. So, we've had an economic collapse, we're recovering from it. And I just feel really strongly that we need to help the nation grow. So that's one. And then I'm also the head of Catch the Fire, the Global Catch the Fire, Sri Lanka. So I lead about a couple of churches. I'm leading, or I'm, coming alongside them.
Yeah.
Growing the churches. So in a nutshell, that's a little bit about what I'm doing. But under each one of those, there's like a million things happen.
Yeah, it sounds like. I mean, I'm trying to catch up. I have one organization now. I've got to start a couple more just to keep up with Ru. So okay.
Mission. Well, we have Fearless too, so I think Jesus Missions and Fearless, and now you have like maybe
we'll start a third arm. The first one. Tell me the name again. Enforcers of the Global. What was it?
Enforcers of the Call Global.
Enforcers of the Call Global. Tell me about what the. I mean, I love the name. It's an awesome name. Tell me about where that name kind of came from and what it's really aiming to do.
Yeah, so we're 19 years old, and it started. We had a civil war in our country for 33 years, and there was this lady. I was ministering in a church in England once in 2000, I think it was. And she suddenly, the main speaker of the conference, she actually pounced on me suddenly. She just jumped on the stage, put her hands on me, and she said, "Oh, you're going to roar like a lion, and you're going to end the war, and you will create history in your country." And I was like, how do you roar and end a war? I mean, that's like bizarre. And because I didn't know much at that stage, right? But 6 years later, literally, that happened. I mean, literally. Because the Lord began to speak to me, call the wailing women to cry out for the land to end the war. So I went from
Wow.
province to province. We have 9 provinces, and God began to build a team together. And then one day He said, now you've got the team, you've got to call it enforcers of the call. And everybody, like the church kind of heads here, they came against it because they said that's not an ideal name. Why that name? I
Mm,
said, oh, God said, I'm going to stick with the name because it was in the
mm,
middle of a war as well. The
mm.
nation was in such chaos. And you
Wow.
don't have a name called Enforcers of the Call. It's like
Yeah.
ridiculous. But it was a name that God gave, nothing to do with me. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
chosen, but He gave the
Right.
name. And then over the years, so what we did, I mean, it's a long story, but we had an amazing conference that couple of months later the war ended after that. So we got these wailing women from Jeremiah 9 verse 22, where I went to each province and I raised up intercessors, prophetic intercessors, got them together, and in this huge auditorium, about 1,500 of them. And we met for 3 days, and many, many things happened. I mean,
Wow.
really bizarre, awesome, incredible stuff. I told you miracles, right? So we,
Yeah.
we did all of this, and then a couple of months later, the war ended. Uh,
Wow.
and
What
so
year
this
was
is
that?
that was 2008, I think,
Okay.
2008. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Were you saying it was mostly women? It was like the 1,500
Yeah,
people, or was it men and women?
that particular conference was mainly women. It was 1,500 intercessors from all 9 provinces in the country.
Mm. Wow.
And
Wow.
I
And
mean,
so, and
sorry,
you were
go
saying
ahead.
that the church wasn't really behind it at the
No, they
time.
persecuted me. I
Really?
was persecuted. Yeah.
What did that look like? Like, how were they persecuting
So,
you?
so what happened was I was a very, I mean, at that time, so this lady gave this prophecy, right? And then actually after she gave the prophecy for 6 years, I didn't follow the Lord. I said, Lord, I can't do this. I'm not
Mm.
interested. Find somebody else kind of thing. So for 6 years, I was doing my own thing. I was miserable inside, but I said, Lord, I don't want to get involved in church and all of that. I'm not into all of that.
Mm.
But I could hear God. So one of my friends had come from overseas, and she had her son had given some money so we could go on a nice trip. So I went to my favorite place on earth, which is up in a mountain in the middle of my country. And we were there. And then while we were getting ready to have dinner, the Lord began to speak to me. And He told me, when you come down from this mountain, I want you to go to each province, gather the wailing women, and get ready for what I'm going to do. So I told him, I haven't gone to church for 6 years. How am I going to
Wow.
even do this? And nobody's going to even want to connect because I have zero connection with the church.
Mm.
And then supernaturally, the Lord just connected people. So they would
Mm.
just call me. I mean, He would show me faces. I told him I don't even have a telephone number. I don't know who to call. And the next day they would call me. It was freaky.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, why did you call? And they said, well, we just thought about you. We found a number, we called. It was like that. And then,
Wow.
so I then knew God was really in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so this team came together, and I told them, God's spoken to me something. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Uh, but you go seek God and you tell me what He tells you and whether you should join me in whatever He's asking me to do. So everyone who the Lord brought, pretty much, they had a revelation to work with me.
Wow.
God had told them, okay, this is what it is.
Mm.
And so I mean, pretty much the team is intact. 17 years we worked together.
Wow.
Wow.
Uh,
That's
and
amazing.
it's only God. Yeah.
Yeah,
We've had
that
our,
is
I
amazing.
mean, it hasn't been easy. We have fought, we have cried, we have laughed, but we have stuck together. So now we are seasoned.
Mm,
Uh,
Wow, that's
yeah.
so
and
great.
we're still seeing God do incredible things.
Yeah.
So then so then we started going province to province, talking to the women, because everybody, if you were a mother, if you were a grandmother at that time during the war, you hurt for the country, you hurt for the young people who were
Right.
being slaughtered. It was a pain in our heart, and we didn't. And
Mm,
and then I had forgotten this lady had said, right, you will roar like a lion. uh, so, 2006 is when this whole thing started. End of, 24th of August. And so I began one morning, I woke up at 2 in the morning, I took a canvas and I began to paint. Uh, and I painted this lion, and I'm usually very critical about my own art.
Hmm.
But that particular painting came out so well. I was like, wow, this is really good. And I knew it was not me. Something was,
Mm,
Lord was flowing through me. And so and that whole year from then on up to today, I just keep painting lions.
mm,
And so everybody
wow.
said, why are you painting lions at that time? And then I told them, well, I don't know. It's just coming out of me. I had actually forgotten about this prophetic word, because it was 6 years ago, right? Anyway, at the conference, I did all these worship flags with lions and all of that. And one morning at the conference, uh, everyone was taking my worship flags and they were draping it on their body and taking photographs. And I was watching this and I was thinking, what are they doing? And then I had this friend of mine who actually drove me to that meeting in England. He was there with me when this lady prophesied. So he was here in Sri Lanka at the conference that we were doing, where we gathered all these intercessors. And then he came across the stage while I was thinking, oh my God, this is what Pauline Edwards was talking about. And we both thought about it at the same time. And he said, Ru, do you remember what Pauline prophesied? And I said, you won't believe it, John. I just, it's freaky that you're thinking about the same thing.
Mm,
And then I just knew that morning what I had to do. I just got up on the stage. I told them, listen, we have Jude, the Lion of Judah is in us, and we're going to roar over the nation.
mm.
And so imagine 1,500
Yeah,
intercessors
amazing.
roaring together. So much so that, the conference is like in this major conference center in Sri Lanka, uh, and it's a high security zone. So I didn't know this because I was on the stage, but my team was manning all the doors. And actually, subsequently, many years later, they told me that the moment you started to roar, the whole auditorium was roaring. All the soldiers from everywhere, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, the police, they're all stationed in this convention center. They all came running in with their guns because they didn't know what the sound was. It was hilarious, but you know,
that's wild.
amazing. So yeah, so we've had an amazing, amazing, amazing journey, and we're continuing with this incredible
Wow.
journey.
So, and now the primary focus since that like Civil War had ended is like a prayer movement now. It's just a call to prayer. And what is the focus
Yeah.
now?
So so since then, from 2006 up to today, every Wednesday we meet and we pray. Still
Mm,
for the country, and of course
mm,
other nations as well, because
mm,
we're opening up in other nations. But uh,
yeah.
you know, predominantly, we are known in this country for prayer,
Hmm.
but God's been shifting, my focus to different angles as well, because I'm the head of all these organizations.
Mm,
So he's,
mm.
I mean, I'm like a very kingdom-minded person. I'm not
Hmm.
into churchy stuff. Okay. Uh,
Can you talk a
I'm
little bit
more,
more about that? And I also know, like, obviously you mentioned like the persecution and kind of what that was like. how how did um how did God almost like help you reconcile those things in your heart of like, okay, the church is persecuting me, but at the same time, the bride of Christ is it's the church, but maybe not the way the church that we know or say the church is, you know? So maybe kind of like your experience with the church and then now 17 years later, how all of well, maybe 19 years later, sorry, how all of that has kind of maybe reconciled in your heart.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to tell you that was one of your questions. How did the church persecute? So when we were doing all of this stuff, like I said, I was far away from God, and I came back. So there is this like what you call the Evangelical Alliance of any nation, Sri Lanka, whatever. So they actually the leadership, who is the leadership of the church, the heads of denominations. So there was a friend of mine. He was head of a Bible school, and he called me and said, "Ru, they have trashed you in this council or whatever they call it in this organization. The way they have trashed you, you will never be able to work in this country." So
Wow.
I was really, I just felt so uh, crushed during
Mm.
this time of, gathering these wailing women. So I had a
Mm.
friend of mine from UK. She was here. She's an intercessor. She saw me being crushed. So she locked me in my room, took the key out, and she said, "You need to deal with this with God.
Mhm.
Mm.
I'm not going to open the door until you tell me that God has spoken to you and you have got this sorted and you're not, being crushed anymore." So I just took the Bible. I went to God and I said, "You're asking me to do this. I mean, I can't go through any more persecution. Can you please talk to me?" So the Lord began to talk to me. I snapped out of it in like 10-15 minutes.
Wow.
And so what happened was we as a team. So this organization said, "You have no right to do this conference without our permission. You have to get our permission, right?" So then I was a very backpedaling leader at that time because I felt very insecure. So I told my team, "These people want a meeting. Let's go see what they want." And they gave us options. They said, "We will stand with you. We'll help you to do the conference, but we will tell you what to do and who should stand on the stage." Okay. So I told my team, and the other option was, "We don't support you. We don't do anything, and we're not going to help you. And if anything goes wrong, it's on your head." So my team, uh, I told them, "You make the decision." At that time. So they said, "We'll go with option A, that this organization will support us and all of this, right?" So I came back home and I tried to open my front door. As I opened my front door, I was actually literally thrown to the floor and I was pinned on the floor. I couldn't get up. And I heard the Lord just like his booming voice in my living room saying, "What did you do?" And I'm like, I can't move. I cannot barely talk. And the Lord kept saying, "What did you do?" So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "What did you do?" It's like, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" He said, I don't want you to work with this organization. They don't follow me.
Hmm.
They
Wow.
do everything according to their ways. I never wanted you to. That's why I spoke to you. I want you to free yourself from them. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, Lord. Okay, I was freaking out. I said, "If you take me off the floor, I will do it." And so I came up, and then he kind of released me. I was like wrestled down to the floor. So I immediately called my team. I said, "The Lord has spoken to me. I'm not telling you what He told me. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, come back. Let's discuss. And you tell me what He told me." So they all came back. I mean, they were people also who could hear God, which is really brilliant. And
Mm.
they said, "God told us that He had told you that we should not work with this organization." So there was about 10 of us at that time. Amazing. So I said, yes. So we wrote to them and said, "We are not going to partner with you. Anyway, during the conference, the guy that I told you, he was on the council as well, my friend. He said, "I believe in you, Ru. I'm going to support you." So his Bible school kind of supported us. He came to the back of the stage, and I thought, "Oh no, now what?" And then he said, "No, I came to tell you that the council, some of them came secretly to
Wow.
see what was happening, and they
Mm,
had come back and they told me only God could have done what she has done." So
Wow.
I
mm,
came personally to tell you that, to encourage you. Just keep
wow.
doing what.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was kind of the persecution at that time.
Yeah.
But they've always, they feel threatened. I don't know what it is because I'm a bit of a person who does things out of the box. I'm
Mm,
not the mainstream. I'm
mm,
always shaking things up wherever I
yeah.
go, whatever I do. But I want results, and
Yeah.
God is somebody who does that. He shakes
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So I love it. If
Yeah.
my father is like that, then I need to shake up everything as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
pastor, our senior pastor likes to say, when he's been preaching about Paul and we've been going through the book of Acts and he's been saying like when Paul preached, it either brought revival or riots, and I think when God
Absolutely.
moves, it'll either bring revival or a riot, and
Mhm.
it's the truth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got to break away from the norm because Jesus was somebody who really shook everything.
Mm,
You know. And I think
yeah.
when you look at the way he walked on the earth and the people they had to contend with, those same people are there. The same spirit operates in every nation.
Mm,
So you've got to see that either you're with Jesus or you're with the religious leaders
Right.
who
right.
try to control everything. And
Right.
of course, if you're with Jesus, you're in one sense, you're in the majority.
Right.
You don't need anybody else. But in another sense, you're alone because
Mhm.
everyone else is going in one direction and you're going in another direction.
Right.
Mm,
But it's the
mm,
best direction to go in.
Right.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
narrow way.
Yeah. But it's a
Um, I'm curious, like, just your perspective on Sri Lanka and like Christianity and how it takes root and how it takes shape in Sri Lanka. And I'll give just two bits of context before before one is, just interestingly, I just finished a book. Do you know who William Carey is? You heard
Mhm.
of William Carey, right? So I just read his book, which is an amazing book. And I don't usually cry reading books. On the last few pages of that book, I finished it just a couple of nights ago. I was like, Delisha, my wife, had just gone up to sleep, and I just got really emotional. His whole story is just this really incredible story of sacrifice. But even for him, going from England to India, and translated the first Indian Bible and this whole thing, and really pioneered missions back then. Even for him, he felt this call from God to go and reach what they would refer to back then as the heathen, right? Like the unreached person. And and he presented it to like the church council, the Church of England, and he was like, "Hey, we need to go," and spread this gospel. And then in front of everybody, the head guy got up and basically said, "Now here's a man who clearly knows nothing about the will of God.
Hmm.
And if God wants those people to be reached, he will reveal himself to them," and just ridicule them. And 350 years later, William Carey is regarded as the father of modern missions, right? And is such a huge impact on that region of the world. And it's just like, but he was ridiculed at first for his ideas. But like you say, just similarly in parallel, right? Like the Lord spoke to you something, and you have to have that conviction that this is God speaking it, because that will carry you forward. And I know for us with Jesus missions, it's been a similar journey, where I'm maybe in your eyes I'm still a young man. I feel old, but I'm 34 now, and we have four little children. But I had this word from the Lord about missions about maybe it's 3 years ago now. But my wife and I have served in our church since I'm from New Zealand. and I moved to California, met a girl, met Fearless, basically the church at the same time, felt God ask me to lay down all these dreams I had at the time for acting and to help start this church. And so I married this beautiful woman, Delisha, and then we've been with Fearless for 12 years. But even with all of that passion for the Lord, I had never heard how many people around the world had never even heard of Jesus, and that um, I kind of just thought missions was like, oh, you go and build an orphanage or a school or, these things, which are all part of the missional world. But the original call from Jesus was reach every people group on earth. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, January 15th of 2021. So of 2022. So
3
just
years.
a little over 3 years ago. Yeah. I had this word from missions in the middle of the night. I woke up and I was like, missions, missions, missions. Almost felt like I was going crazy. I was like, I'm having a midlife crisis, just like this word in the middle of the night. And I remember thinking like, and it happened for 3 days in a row, morning and night, missions, missions, missions. And not like go to a specific nation, just this word. And I was like, I think the Lord's telling me to do something in missions. And I've never thought about missions in my life. And even had really perception of what it is. But I started to look, and over the period of the next few weeks, again, story for another time, there's lots that happened within this 3 weeks, but really crazy signs from the Lord that I was to play a part in global missions in some capacity. But the first discovery it led me to was that 40% of the world is considered unreached and have never had the gospel presented to them, and majority of which don't even know the name of Jesus. And I was like, man, at 21 years old, I laid down all my dreams of acting and all this stuff because I felt God called me to ministry. And I've been in ministry over a decade, and I've never heard this. And these were Jesus' final words, was spread the gospel to all nations and all people groups. And yet today, more people than ever have just not heard it. And I was like, how do we not know that? And anyway, long story short, it led me to starting Jesus Missions. I felt like the Lord said to me one morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, Jesus Missions. And I was like, that sounds like some typical Christian organization. So I was like looking up this organization that I was supposed to maybe partner with. And then I felt like the Lord said, you're supposed to start this organization. So we did. And then we have been focused really on communicating to the world how many people do not know the gospel yet. Because most people just think it's a couple of remote islands or a couple of remote villages that just never heard. It's just a few hundred people on those islands. But no, those people are untouched from modern civilization. They're not unreached.
Right.
Many, many people around the world are unreached. And even here in America, they say like most people, just like 90% of Christians, are unaware of this reality. And less than 1% of churches in America even are reaching their local city. They're saying they're not even outreaching to their local city. Less than 1% of all churches are doing that. So how are we going to reach the world and all the unreached people if we're not engaging in global missions? So we went to the Himalayas earlier this year, and we're shooting this film and basically trying to show how different people are reaching unreached people groups, and just highlighting, hey, God's final words, his great commission was go reach all people. And today no one's heard, or 40% of the world has still not heard. Anyway, that was just to get me to, I just, I know India is not Sri Lanka. In fact, I kept introducing whenever I for some reason my head I always used to think Shobi was Indian. And then one day she had to tell me, she's like, I'm Sri Lankan.
It's like, I'm
And I
Sri
was like,
Lankan.
okay.
Don't
And I
make
was
that
like, hey.
distinction. You have to make the distinction. Don't make the mistake.
Absolutely.
Tell you. So
But he
anyway,
gets it. He's from New Zealand. If somebody was to say he was Australian, he'd be like,
Australian. People say it all the time.
all the time.
People say it all the
Yeah,
time. I'm
but
just like,
you don't have an Kiwi accent.
no, it's gone. It faded. Yeah. I'm more American now than I am.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just curious on your perspective now, doing ministry for so long in Sri Lanka and seeing kind of the spiritual warfare, the spiritual landscape. Um, is Sri Lanka primarily a Buddhist nation or a Hindu nation?
Hmm.
Buddhist.
Yeah, or both maybe.
Buddhist.
Buddhist. Okay. So yeah, what's it like there in terms of, I don't know, just what's your general sense of the landscape of Christianity there? What's going well? What are the weaknesses? I don't know. Just what are the battles? Yeah.
Well, uh, it's like this. I mean, again, if you look at the mainline kind of the churchy kind of church is very ineffective because they're very organized and they don't. I mean, if anybody hears this, they probably shoot me. But what I see is the church is pretty much like what Jesus had to contend with.
Mm.
Mm,
The religious organization. But then you have when you go into the interior villages and places like that, you have the people who really feel called and God's really using them. Uh, just last month, we went and went to this particular area where my spiritual father came down from Japan, and we did a meeting in this pastor's church where he's planted something like uh, I don't know, some 1,000 home churches.
Wow.
I mean, it was incredible. So we kind of really felt that he's really apostolic. So we set him in as an apostle, and he was telling me, I want to plant 5,000 home churches around the country, and he's doing an awesome job. But the
Wow.
spiritual warfare context, his wife is under severe attack.
mm,
She's totally messed up. And he's being held back, so I was telling him I can help to help your wife. And he was like, no, 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 you can't come. You can't come to my house. You can't, because she's in such a bad state. Anyway, so there are those type of guys who are doing an incredible job around the country, but they are always, or the mainstream church or their denominations are against them. So
mm,
the denomination here, uh, they don't see themselves. They don't see that they are just like the Sadducees and the Pharisees.
Mm.
mm,
They come against anyone who's doing an awesome job.
mm,
They crush them. They do stuff to them. It's crazy because even I work with so many churches, right, under Catch the Fire, and some of those pastors were telling me the terrible things their denomination has done to them.
Wow.
But what we've discussed is if you stayed there, you would never be who you were meant to be.
Mm.
You would always be controlled. And so they, somehow it's like God ejected them from there
mm,
to come out and really
mm,
do what they're doing. And they're just going for it.
mm, mm,
They're passionate. They've heard the call of God, and they are willing to forego everything. So much
mm,
sacrifice. It's not easy here in Sri Lanka because you get persecuted, and the temples come against you. The Buddhist priests send their people to thrash you. So there's a lot of persecution that goes. It doesn't get on the social media or nobody knows.
mm,
But because I travel the country, I know what's happening.
mm.
So it's tough. It's very tough. But then sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious on that. I like on how what does that look like, that conflict between like trying to reach it's mostly a Buddhist nation, so what does it look like to reach Buddhists, and are they ever receptive to it? Have you seen any like successes there, or is it a lot of retaliation? Like, and what does that retaliation look like?
So, Rich, I see. For me, I have this premise that how I function is like what Jesus said, right? Jesus said, "I only do what I see my Father do." So that's my that's how I run. If I don't see it, I won't do it. Okay. So some time ago in 2020, a friend of mine came from the US. Actually, my classmate's mom, she's in her 80s. She was sponsoring some child in some village. And she was going during Christmas, she was going to the village. So I said, Auntie, let me drive you. I'll be the driver. So I was the driver, and we drove into this temple. And I was like, and so she was dealing with the Buddhist priest and some those children. And I was leaning against my car, and I was wondering, what am I doing here? But I was the driver, right? And then suddenly the Buddhist priest comes to me and he talks to me and he said, can you talk to my mothers and my children? And I was like, what do I speak? What do I tell them? Because I can only talk about Jesus and I can't do that here. But anyway, I said, okay, God, you're doing something. Let's go with the flow. And I said, okay. So that cut a long story short. So from that time, God began to open a million doors in that village till we could transform it, till they could become self-sufficient.
Wow.
And the church was down the street, okay, from the temple. I offered help to the church as well. He said, no, I don't want any help. Then I offered to bridge, have a dialogue between the temple and the church. He said, no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I said, that's crazy, because the Buddhist priest was willing. So
Wow.
what the Lord ended up doing was he just provided everything they needed. The Buddhist priest called me one day. He said, so actually before I left the village that day, I told him, give me 2 children. I will pay for their education. Only 2. I could afford only 2. So he took a long time. 6 months later, he comes to Colombo with 40 files. And he said, here. I said, only 2 children. You give me 40 files. How am I going to find the money? He said, no, it's okay. You do what you can. So I lifted the files up to God and I said, Lord, what do I do? Where do I even find this money? And in 1 week, God provided all the money.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So we've been, so from 2020, we've been doing this. Then he would call me and say, we don't have, especially during COVID, he said, our people are starving. They're boiling leaves and drinking jack leaves, and they're drinking. They don't have food because of COVID. He said, help me. So then he said, I want 1,000 kilos of rice. Like 1,000 kilos. I don't even know what that looks like. So again, I looked up. I said, Lord, what do we do? The 1,000 kilos came within 3 days.
Wow.
Wow.
So, and then he called me another time and he told me, can you find me 2 old bicycles? Because it's a border village and it's very, very poor. And, nobody goes there and there's no transport. So the children have to walk for miles to even get to school or to catch a bus. So he said, at least if we have 2 bikes, we can do something, take it in turns. So again, I checked up how much bicycles were. They're very expensive. So I said, Lord, what do we do? And about 10 minutes later, a friend of mine coming from England at that time, and then he said, oh, what are you up to now? So I said, I am actually wondering what to do because I have got this request for 2 bicycles. So he said, okay, give me 5 minutes. I'll call you back. And he said, I can't give you 2. I will give you 50 bicycles.
Wow.
So he sent the bicycles over to the village. And I went and I distributed them. So every family pretty much got a bicycle.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was just before we had this petrol crisis. We had, the country fell down economically, and so we didn't have petrol, we didn't have transport, we had a lot of issues. There's one village that God's eye was upon had transport. So much so
Wow.
that I got famous overnight because I had given a bicycle. But anyway, so so every time the Buddhist priest would give me a request, he would say, can you help me with this? Help me with this, help me with this. It was incredible. He would tell me, can you build toilets? Because they didn't have toilets, no sanitation. And to build a toilet comes to about, now today, it comes to about 150,000 rupees. It's a lot of money.
It's like
But
$800, I think.
every
800
time,
something.
every time the money came, right? So why I'm saying this is So much so that eventually he would tell me, every time you come here, something happens. It's like miraculous. And he told
Mm,
me one day, "You're like a god to us." I
mm,
never talked about Jesus. I never said anything. I just loved the people.
Mm.
mm,
And that was the key. So much so
mm,
that he eventually said, "Can I have a Bible?" So
Mm.
what I have experienced is that if you love, you don't have to talk.
Right.
mm,
They see
mm.
Jesus.
Yeah,
That's so good.
That's
yeah,
the key to
yeah.
reaching anybody, because
Mm,
I'm experiencing it firsthand. I love the people. I love and God is the only one who can give you that love. But
Mm.
mm,
the contrast between the Buddhist village and the church, and these guys are supposed to be the ones who follow Jesus. But,
Right.
mm,
but it's the temple that was receiving the grace of God, the gifts of God, the love of God. I mean, everything. Because
mm.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't understand it. And I heard people tell me, "Well, why are you helping the temple?" I said, "I'm not helping the temple. God is helping the temple."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. Institutions are hard. It's such a hard thing to um there are some good works that happen, but they struggle
Of
with
course.
internal either conflict or apathy, or at one point they had fire and then they become, I was talking to a missionary in Nepal who was I was asking him, we were taking the first time we went to Nepal, right after I got this word about missions, I was like, let me just go somewhere and like start listening to what the Lord wants to do. And I was asking him out there, like, what's the value of short-term missionaries going? Like, if we go for 2 weeks, what benefit is this to you guys out here trying to pioneer and reach Nepal? And he said, one of the things that happens even with the long term missionaries, this guy has been in Nepal. He moved from the United States about 20 years ago and lives in Nepal with his family. But he said they move there often with all this fire and passion and zeal. And then if you're not careful, you can kind of move there as a missionary, but then become um, you kind of just become like you're living in the nation. Like you just live there, you get a job, you just kind of start living a normal life there, and you forget the purpose for why you went as the missionary, and you just start to live. And so he said, one of the benefits of short-term teams coming is often a short-term team will come and they're so expectant, they're like ready for miracles, and they got a lot of fire and zeal, especially younger people. And so he was saying it kind of reminds the long-termers, like, oh, that's what we used to have, and it kind of like fires them back up to be like, okay, we need to keep going here. But even, and I think that's like, even that statistic, we have a saying at Fearless, that's love people until they ask why. Because it's everybody just wants just to preach or just to say, but the act of love can speak so much louder. And we used to do these outreaches on these college campuses here, secular college campuses, and we would just, middle of the nights, all the young students are drinking, they're drunk and they're partying and they're on drugs and they're, and we would just go to sit up on the side of the road and cook pancakes at night. And we just do these pop-up pancake parties, and we just chocolate chip pancakes. And when somebody's drunk, nothing sounds better than a chocolate chip pancake to them. So they will stop for the pancake, and they say, what's the catch? And we just say, there's no catch. You could just have a pancake if you like. But 9 times out of 10, they're like, okay, well, they're just asking you questions. Why are you
Right.
guys here in the middle of the night making
Mm.
pancakes? And then we would open up a door to have a conversation with them and to show them love. And, it was just amazing, just the conversations you'd have with these students. And, but it was through acts of love. And, I think for Shobi and I, one thing we're proud of with Fearless is it's a pretty active church in that way, with like pioneering and reaching the community. But I think what church really struggles with, and it sounds, I think we could just say the American church, but it kind of sounds like maybe it's more of a global issue too, is it's it's easy to become apathetic,
Mhm.
or to become like you started with so much fire and then you got used to or complacent, or the momentum died or something happened. And that's like this statistic, and for America is less than 1% of churches have a regular outreach to their city. Like they're not even serving the city. And it's like, well, why are we here then? We just
Right.
sit and wait for people to come to us. No, you got to go out and reach the people. Go out and um, yeah, I think that's just such a struggle, and to try to find out how do you maintain that fire and that zeal, to keep going. Like like even for us, like with Jesus missions, I think what we're trying to do, and I love your perspective on this, is one thing we want to do with Jesus missions is help churches, because we kind of see that same thing, right? Like, okay, churches aren't reaching. So if a church in America is not even, or maybe Sri Lanka too, but if they're not even reaching their local community, how are they ever going to reach the nations that
Mm.
are closed and persecuted, and the 3.4 billion people that have never heard the gospel in many nations? And so I'm like, well, what we want to do with Jesus missions is empower the church to be like, hey, let us help you build a missional arm of your church, so you can go out and you can start to outreach locally and then outreach globally. So you can find missional hubs around the world that you can plant house churches in, or go help with Bible translation, or with poverty, whatever the call that you feel like as a church God's putting on your heart, you can go and do that. And Jesus missions is just kind of a guiding tool to be like, here, we're just a tool in your tool belt to help you go and do that. But yeah, do you have any thoughts around this, like around, I don't know how to phrase it as a question, but
How do you wake up the church?
yeah, kind of,
That's what,
yeah, it's
okay,
a good
so
way to
let
say
me,
it.
yeah, that's a good question. So last weekend, it was on Saturday, I was in the middle of my country, training or ministering to business people under ICCC. I was asking the Lord, what do you want us to do? So he told me, teach them how to prophesy, activate prophecy for them. And there was about 70 business people, pastors included, and various people. So I taught, I mean, I take 8 days to teach that, but then in a couple of hours I did little bit snippets, and they all began to prophesy. When we started, they couldn't even hear the voice of God. But then at the end, like there was only one man who put his hand up. How many of you can hear the voice of God? One man put his hand up out of the 70. But at the end of the whole day, everybody was prophesying, and pretty accurately. So then they all came to me and said, "Oh my God, we have been in the church. We have known God for 20 years." Somebody said 25 years. Some said, more longer than that. We have never heard this teaching. We have never, can you please come back? Can you come and do it in another place, another place, another place? So I said, yeah, can. So the key that from my whole journey because people ask me, how is it that you keep your fire going? How is it that you're always doing something? And it's like we pretty have a very successful kind of ministry, I would say. Not because of anything that we do, but the key is to hear the voice of God.
Hmm.
You do only what the Father asks you to do, because then you'll always have success and you will
Mm.
always be active. And what I have found is that because I just listen to the Lord and I go only with what He says, I have time to rest, even though
Yeah.
my life is like hectic in one sense. But He gets me the rest. He's not a taskmaster.
Right.
You can rest. You can get refreshed. You can spend time with Him. All of that, and then whatever you do, it has long lasting results.
Hmm.
You don't have to go back and dig the well again.
Wow.
Okay, so two things I would say a church should run based on Ephesians chapter 4, where the fivefold ministry is very key. And Ephesians chapter 2, where it talks about the foundation of a church should be apostles and prophets, with Jesus being the cornerstone.
Wow.
If you have a church like that, it will be a relevant church. It will be a church on fire constantly. It will be a church that will impact society, impact a nation.
Mm.
Okay, so unknowingly to me, I mean, God, because my thing is, I don't know much. Okay, I only know how to hear God's voice. And I have always found that I've been going in a direction, and then somebody God will bring into my life who puts word basis to what I'm living in.
Mm.
Okay, so for example, my spiritual father, I met him in 2009. And God actually forced me to go to a conference, an ICCC conference in Singapore. So I grabbed Shobi's mom. I told her, God is asking me to go to Singapore. Can you come with me? Because I don't want to go alone. He said, why? I said, I don't know. Let's go and see. So we went. So her dad also came. We were seated at this conference. It was the most boring conference in the whole wide world for ever centuries. And her mom kept nudging me every 5 minutes, why did God ask you to come here? I was feeling really uncomfortable because every 5 minutes she would say that because it was so boring. On the last day, this strange man got up. I mean, a strange man. This man got up to speak. They were introducing him. While they were introducing him, my spirit began to just go berserk. So I told her mom, I said, I think it's something to do with this man. She said, do you know him? I said, I don't know him. I've never seen him in my life. I don't know anything about him. But anyway, so then she turned around while he was ministering. She turned around and told me, "Oh, he seems like you in a foreign man's body." I said, "Yeah, he's saying the same things and all of that." Anyway, cut long story short, we connected, right? And then he came to Sri Lanka, and then he began to teach on the apostolic. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is what I live on a day-to-day life." I didn't have word knowledge to that. I was living something that I had no clue about. And then over the years, I've realized that the prophetic and the apostolic with the prophetic changes everything.
Wow.
Mm.
You will be on fire for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So more churches need to become apostolic because
Wow.
all of us have apostolic DNA. We are proton believers, you know. And the Bible says first apostles, then prophets. And and if the Lord said that, there has to be a reason. But
Mm.
today we have put the pastor as the head. But
Right.
that's not biblical. The
Mm.
apostle is the head. So this is why churches go into apathy. They go into like a passionless faith. But you put the apostles in the right place. You put the prophet in the right place. With Jesus being that cornerstone,
Mm.
everything changes. And you
Wow.
know
Mm.
what the cornerstone means, right? Do you know what it looks like? So if you go to Israel, for example, you have, uh, you know, the cornerstone. I was really shocked because in Sri Lanka, cornerstone is some in little corner of your house, you put a stone, and that's like the foundation. But in Israel, Jesus, so that their cornerstone is you have like the whole house is built like in an ark. You have the apostle, the prophet, and then you have Jesus right in the center.
Wow.
So he's holding both prophet and apostle, or apostle and prophet.
Mm.
So it was fascinating to me,
Wow.
and personally, I have experienced one of the reasons why we are quite successful as a ministry is because we have embraced the apostolic and the prophetic. I mean,
Mm.
it was not even like something I went after. It just happened. It just,
Mm. Yeah.
the key was because I want God. The older I get, I want Him more and more and more and more and more.
Mm.
Mm.
And so, wherever we go, God just shows up and does something.
Mm.
And for me, that's important. I
Wow.
don't like a boring Christian life. I want action.
Us
I
neither.
want picture. That's it.
We love
Otherwise,
that.
I don't want to follow God,
Yeah. 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 Wow. Shobi, do you have anything else you want to ask or touch on that you don't think we've touched on yet?
Um, I think maybe just honestly how you came to know the Lord. We can we can take that full
Mm,
circle. I mean, I heard the story and knew the story growing up, but it's one of those stories that have, like, stuck with me for so long, and, growing up just to give everyone, like, just a little brief thing too. So, both myself and Rooney, we grew up Buddhist. So I think that's also why I resonated with her so much. And as a young child, I was 8 when my family got saved, but I was always like Rich, you and I, we are dreamers. We love movies, we love anything creative. So little did I understand that that creativity was also a gift of faith. Like, I didn't know that. I only found that out as I grew older and dove deeper into the wood. But like, I think something about the spiritual unlocks faith because that's why people are so crazy about it. Not just when it comes to God. Like, people want to see angels and demons and all things. But I think hearing Rooney's testimony as a young child, and this was before even my whole family had got saved, pretty much. I think it stuck with me because it allowed me to remind myself what true faith should look like,
mm,
and the reality of who God is. Like, God is not just this voice in the ether, and heaven
mm.
is not a concept. It's real. And so it just would maybe we can wrap up by
Yeah,
hearing that story because it's a powerful, powerful story.
let's go.
Yeah, so so I was a Buddhist, right? I was actually my mother was an Anglican, so we used to be dragged to church, and I hated it because there used to be this smelly man who would sit in this pew, and we seemed to always sit next to him. So I remember how boring church was. And so my father was a Buddhist, so I began to follow Buddhism because I thought that's the better thing. It's a philosophy and all of this stuff, and I loved it. Um, and then I started work, and at my workplace there were all these Christians who would bombard me with this whole Jesus thing. And I used to tell them about Buddhism. They used to tell me about Christianity, and they would, like frighten me kind of thing. If you die and you go to hell, and I'm like, I don't believe in hell. But anyway, so then they invited me for a youth camp, and in the youth camp, they tried to. Well, I at that time, I thought they were trying to convert me. Okay, because everyone else was saved, I wasn't, and I then thought, okay, I'm not going to eat their food because they might put something in the food to make me a Christian. That's how sometimes we Buddhist people believe. So
Hmm.
anyway, they I think it was the last day of the camp. The pastor's son, he spoke to me. He said, "Can I pray for you?" I said, "Yeah, if you want, you pray." But while he was praying, I had this thought. They have tried everything to convert me. I am not being converted. But if there is some truth to what they're saying, and if there is a God that they are talking about, then it was just a fleeting thought. Uh, if this God reveals himself to me, I will give him my life. It's just a thought. And so about maybe about a couple of years later, I went to meditate to my aunt's house again in the middle of the country in the central province. And it was a full moon Poya day, which we call a Poya day. It's when the moon is full. And as I began to meditate, I suddenly left my body. I could see myself seated on the chair, but then I was translated and I could see myself getting smaller and smaller. And then I was like, God. And I was in this beautiful place. I mean, it's breathtakingly beautiful. There are no words to describe. And there were so many significant things that really caught my attention. One was that there were no shadows. The roads were made of, see-through glass, like gold, see-through gold, which now I know is translucent gold. And there were all these massive houses, like mansions, along the road, and with exquisitely beautiful gardens. Not one blade of grass was out of place. Every tree, was vibrant in color. The flowers were vibrant. I mean, I'm an artist. I love color, and I could see the colors so enhanced in this place. I mean, it was crazy. And and this man is walking with me. We're going down the street, and I'm like, wow. And there was no sun. The place was lit by some other light, which I guess that's why there were no shadows. I don't know. Anyway, so we walk along the road, and then suddenly we come to this house. Everything is like the garden has overgrown, the windows have fallen off on their hinges, the door is bashed in, and I'm like, it stuck out like a sore thumb. So I stopped there. I turned to the man and said, "Oh my gosh, whose house is this?" Because it didn't fit with the rest of the houses on the road. So he turned to me and said, "Oh, that's your house." Ah, I was so embarrassed. He said, "Anyway, I'll come back in 2 weeks. See, everything you need to fix your house is there." So I was very happy to get rid of him. It was very embarrassing. So I began to, and what was interesting is I knew carpentry, I knew cement work, I knew gardening, and I was able to fix my house. I didn't need a carpenter or a mason or someone to come and, fix my house. I was able to do it. And the other thing I noticed was I didn't sweat. Like when I worked my garden out here, I sweat. But there it was very easy to put things right. So I put everything right and it looked really good. And then in 2 weeks, this man came back and then he said, "Oh, you've done an amazing job. Can you show me around your house?" I was quite proud about what I had done. So we went around and he said, "Very good, very good. You've done an excellent job." Then he said, "Can we go down to the basement?" I said, "No, that's not a place to go." Uh, and we kind of argued for a little while. And he said, "No, we should go." So, because when I went to the basement, the walls were thick with dark brown muck. And I thought, well, I'm not going to, and I couldn't clean it. There was no way. So I thought, anyway, who's going down to the basement? I don't need it. I'll live upstairs or, above. And, but then this man insisted. So I kind of gave in. We went and I fell on my knees in exasperation. And I told him, I can't, I don't know what to do. Then he turned around to me and said, "Can I help you? Can we do this together?" So I said, "Okay." So he pulled out some metal pieces. We literally scraped the walls like wax. It came out like wax. Uh, and then uh, and then we painted it. Everything looked good. And I swung around to thank him for helping me to do this. And then our eyes locked, and I saw it was Jesus. That knowing, that knowledge. Up to that point, I didn't know who this man was. And I said, "It's you, Jesus." And he said, "Yes, it was always me." And I'm in his eyes. That's what I remember. That's what I still remember. His eyes pierced every part of me. It went through and through, and
Wow.
it was like I was totally exposed. He knew me before I was born. He knew me while I was born. I mean, he knew me even the years that I wouldn't know in the future. That's how his eyes looked through me. And yet they oozed with so much love that I felt, he didn't have to physically hug me. His eyes hugged me. I don't know how to explain it. It was
Mm.
amazing. And then I told him, "Oh, I don't want to leave this place," because that just cut it for me, the fact that he hugged me with his eyes, oozing with so much love. And then I said, and what's going on? What's this place, And so then he said, "Let me explain." So then he said, "This is heaven." Uh, and he said, if this house represents your life, and there are some things in your life you don't need anyone's help, you can fix them. And that's what you did. But the inner recesses of your heart, where you've had pain, uh,
Mm.
overlapping, laid on pain for a number of years. It got really hard. And that's why I asked you whether I can help you. Together, we could fix it because you gave me permission. So then I said, oh, I really don't want to go. I want to be here. He said, no, you got to go back. And so I came back again, I was back on my chair and I knew, okay, I've got to follow Jesus. He's real. He's not
Wow.
uh, uh, some imaginative
Yeah.
Sunday school story. And of course, my family cut me out at that time. It was very hard. But I knew who Jesus was. He is alive. He is truth. He is not somebody's imagination. He is real as you can ever get.
Mm.
And and what was interesting is at that time, my friends, I told my two closest friends at that time, and they laughed at me. So I never shared it again because I thought this is not a story you share. But then a couple of years later, a friend of mine brought a video of a man who went to heaven, and he describes heaven exactly the same way. So I actually got my
Wow.
friends to watch it. We watched it together. And they were like, "Oh, Ru, you told us the truth." I said, "It took 5 years, for this guy to say," and so it's interesting because now, at this stage of my life, uh, you know, I've had so many experiences of going in and out of heaven. And
Mm.
what's really interesting is that I've met a guy from New Zealand, Jason Cobb. Okay, so Jason Cobb's married to an Indian and they run like a children's home campus in India, uh, and those children go in and out of heaven, and they
Wow.
describe it pretty much like what I've experienced too. We have a lot of common kind of situations, and they are like walking on another level. So
Wow.
people going in and out of heaven is very very common now. It's not something you know, it is happens.
Wow.
I mean, even Jason, I prayed because somebody once told me about him and I didn't even know how to contact him. But supernaturally, the Lord contacted us. We are very good friends now. He's coming to Sri
Mm.
Lanka next month. Uh, I mean, it's awesome.
Mm. Wow.
What a place to
I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad Shobi said to tell that story. That was an amazing story. That was that's an incredible vision. It's so vivid. You have a real gift for telling stories too. I think you've told like 10 stories over the course of the hour, and it's just like it's nice to just sit here and like take in these incredible this like wealth of experience that you've walked, on this journey with the Lord. And man, yeah, I think it's just been incredible. And I know we're right at the hour, or just over an hour and 8 minutes in. This has been just amazing. We're so thankful for this time just to share, just pour out wisdom to us, and to share ministry in Sri Lanka and all the stuff you're doing. Um, Revivalist Rue sharing with us. So we
yes.
hope everybody enjoyed the Jesus Missions podcast. And be sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or on any other platform. Follow us on Instagram, Jesus Missions Global. And we appreciate your time, Rue. Thank you so much. And we are out.